was your occupation?
I was known as a loom overseer.
A loom
Loom overseer.
And what did that entail?
That would entail looking after the weavers to make sure their cloth was okay, and I had to take the responsibility if it wasn't. And I had about 6 weavers.
And where was this? Where
In
was
Liddell's in Donaghcloney, William
Donaghcloney.
Liddell's in Donaghcloney.
Right.
And I worked there 47 years.
So what age did you start then? Work backwards? What age were you?
Oh, what do I see now? I must have been about 20.
And you were there for 47 years?
47 years. Well, if a weaver had a fault with a loom, I had to go and see what it was. And if we needed a mechanic or a fitter, I had to go and explain to them what had to be done. And when they'd done their job, I had to tune that loom to its perfection. No, the very first job I was fast in Sims, they're called Sims, electrical shop on the Dublin Road.
Right.
That was my first job.
Uh-huh.
And I was let off 2 days a week for to go to the night tech in Lurgan. And instead of going to the night tech, there's another girl from Donaghcloney, we went to the pictures. So finally the firm got to hear about it, and that finished my electrical engineering.
You were sacked, in other words?
I got chased. And then the next job was motor mechanic in Hillsborough, Smith Brothers. And I settled down and I really loved it. And this day, Little come to Smiths and he come down to me. He says, your father was talking about getting you a job in the factory. And he says, you're starting with me on Monday. That was on a Friday. He said, you're starting with me on Monday. I wasn't right in there one day till Little come round to me. He says, well, how are you getting on? I say, grand, sir. He says, you know, your headmaster put in again, you coming here. That's the one who put the wheelbarrow in the river.
And he didn't want you to be employed by Little?
No, didn't want me employed.
But despite that, you had your job?
Little told me, he says, you have proved them wrong. So, 47 years proved that. I had to start learning the weaving first.
You were a weaver
all
first?
about that first. And I had to serve 6 years in the apprenticeship.
So 6 years of training?
6 years training before I was qualified.
And were there...
The first wage was £3 a week. I thought I was a millionaire.
I'm sure you did. Your
I had
father?
to train with my father and he kept an eye on it.
And that was 6 years of good training then?
No, I didn't stay with him 6 years,
No.
just there for about a few months.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to another overseer and I was with him maybe about 3 years.
Right.
Then finally I was given my own share.
And then you worked your way up through
Worked the way up
over
and
the
then-
years, over the 47 years that you worked there?
And then there were the old type of looms, and it was a wonderful factory. They generated their own electricity with a turbine. And then they sent me to Germany. There was a new type of loom come out, and I had to go to Germany to learn this. At the last, there was no shuttles in the looms yet, at the last. No air till the shuttles. No, none of those. Just what they call rapiers.
Right.
And before my time, there was one cloth left that I loved it, and it was from the Titanic. Little's done the Titanic linens. But that never was mentioned on the news or anything, you know.
No.
There's none at all.
None.
It was practically finished.
Okay.
And what they done in Donaghcloney was, and I told them they were foolish, when they're putting these new Dornier looms in, they were the German shuttless looms. And I told them to be safer to smash the old ones. They sold them to a place in Lisburn, there's scrap metal people.
Scrap metal.
And they sold them over to China and these other countries. They started producing cloth. You know.
Here we are.
And there's very few weaving factories in the country now. Donaghcloney at the start employed about 300 people. And Little built the houses for those people all.
Right.
And he actually started the first free health scheme in Donaghcloney in my young day. Everybody in the factory paid a penny a week, and that went to Dr. Boucher, and you got free treatment. Let's go back a few years.
In the factory?
They were about the first houses in anywhere that had flush toilets.
My goodness. Oh.
And my father was a weaver in Donaghcloney factory. And I can remember always going to the gate on a Thursday, that was payday. And I got 1 penny. He always had a penny for me.
Oh.
And I went to the wee man, Charlie Watson. He was a weaver, but he run a shop at night. And he got a bit of newspaper, made a poke, 2 or 3 sweets in it.
Oh yes.
And that's all you got for that week.
That was your treat.
In my and my father's side, my grandparents, they had hand loom weaving in the house. It was a thatched house, whitewashed walls, and what they called the pantry.
Yeah.
It was a clay floor, and there they had a hand loom. And they made their living as they carried the cloth from Warringstown to Lurgan to the market,
Right.
and carried big beams back. But then my grandfather was a great fiddler, and he went on a Saturday night to the Temperance in Banbridge
Right.
and fiddled there for the dancers.
Great, great.
And he also was an awful man for hunting with the hounds. And I can always mind my father said when he come home with the hounds, they were looked after first before they got their supper. You know,
John would have got
they were
the
washed, they were fed at the fire.